We now have scientific proof that Democrat men are cucks. Democratic married men become more accepting of cheating, study claims. Nah, who could have predicted this? Republican men who regularly attend religious services had the highest views of marriage fidelity, according to a new study. Nah, you're pulling my leg here. There's no way this is real. Democratic men are more likely to have more lenient attitudes towards infidelity in marriage than Republican men, and are more likely to admit to having sex outside their marriages, according to a new analysis. Oh, so they do the cucking as well. Oh, I know what that is. That's probably when their wife's bull wants to fuck them up the ass too. That's probably what that is. Yeah, they want to get a bit of Chad and Tyrone in them as well. Contrary to what the headlines might suggest, Republican men are less likely to stray than other men. Brad Wilcox, a sociology professor and fellow at the Institute of Family Studies, wrote to the group's latest research. Now, there's a reason for that, and we've covered this many times. It's all because when Republican men, like the family values types, when they cheat, it's a big deal, and it's talked about because that ends their political careers. That's the end of their family. Like, that's when they're not living up to their own values. It's a big deal. They're pretty much busted being hypocrites. When Democrats who never pretended to espouse those values, when they're busted not living up to those values, nobody bats an eye because it's no big deal. Like, what do I care if some Democrat guy who was open about being in support of cuckoldry is caught being a cuck or is caught cheating? No big deal. Everyone expected it. But when it's the right-winger that made their entire platform family values, that's why this happens. That's why there's so much focus on the right, because they're the ones that pretend to have values and virtue signal about this. Or that might be partly because when it comes to attitudes about cheating, it's actually Democrats who have become more accepting of extramarital sex in recent years. Why is that a surprise to you? That's been common knowledge. Now, Wilcox's claim is based off data from the General Social Survey, a nationally representative survey of adults in the U.S. conducted since 1972. According to its website, research at IFS used GSS data to determine if there are any trends in moral beliefs about marriage fidelity held by Democrat and Republican men who were married or have ever been married between the ages of 18 and 55. According to their analysis, there's been a decline in fidelity knowns over the past decade among Democratic men in this group. Well, they're literally into cuckoldry now, so are you surprised, really? In the GSS survey spanning from current year minus 14 to current year minus 10, 3/4 of Democrat men, 76% sampled, said extramarital sex was always wrong, but from current year minus 8 to current year minus 2, just over half Democratic men sampled said the same. Wow, the cuckening happened pretty quick, didn't it? Or they just learned to be more honest in the surveys. Republican men's attitudes towards marriage fidelity has stayed virtually the same over the same period, according to Wilcox, with 4 in 5 Republican married men embracing the classic norm of staying faithful in marriage. Men who identified as religious held stricter views than their peers about being faithful in marriage. Specifically, 90% of Republican ever married men 18 to 55 who attend religious services once a month or more say extramarital affairs are always wrong, whereas only 74% of non-religious ever married Republicans endorse the classic fidelity norm. So there's a growing number of cucks there too. What a surprise! There's growing numbers of cucks among trad cucks, huh? Democratic men who regularly attend religious services are also significantly more likely than secular Democratic men to take a hardline stance against infidelity in marriage. Or do any of them actually believe what's being preached, though? That would be my question. When it came to reports of cheating on their own spouses, the groups also differed. Oh, okay. Yeah, so it is kind of split in half. So half of it is how accepting are you of being cucked? And then it's how accepting are you of cucking someone else? Among the once married men sampled from current year minus 14 to minus 2, 18% of Democrats reported having ever had sex outside of marriage, while 30% of Republicans said the same. I'm sure they need to ask the same questions of women. I bet both of those numbers would be ridiculously higher. Reports of cheating on spouses were lower among religious Republican men. Now, was the amount of times they cheated actually lower, or is it just they weren't willing to report that they cheated because they know what's expected of them? According to Wilcox, 15% of secular Republicans reported engaging in extramarital sex, compared to 10% of religious Republicans. There was not a statistically significant difference between religious Democrat men and secular Democrat men in these surveys for reports of cheating from current year minus 14 to minus 2. I guess here's where the double standards come in. There doesn't seem to be a difference with whether or not they're willing to cheat, but their views on how they view being cheated on differ. Okay. And this is assuming that this was all honest, though. But it's still funny. I just love having scientific studies we can point to now and say, hey, look, you guys are cucks. Even if it gets debunked later, we just need to do another one. Because we know from what we observe what the truth is. They can't hide it for much longer, man.